I coped as well as I could throughout my teenage years, which was not very well. And it's kind of this poster child for trauma. I dealt with a lot of eating disorders and self-harm, a lot of substances, unhealthy relationships, you name it, really. In college, it really just came to a head. And my long-term boyfriend was kind of like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. and I say now, he had the courage to tell me, hey, this isn't going to work for me unless you make some changes. And then I had the courage to listen to him. I took it to heart and I actually went through a leadership training. It wasn't a trauma training. It wasn't a let's go do a bunch of therapy training. It was an 8-day leadership training called Leading from the Center. It was about really looking at those different parts of ourselves, looking at the wounded inner child who had been hurt, looking at the angry teenager who was being ignored, looking at the judgmental inner critic who was beating me up all the time, and also this nurturing part that I had no idea even existed in me, and really bringing that nurturing adult part of myself forward, because that's the part we want to lead with. That's the part we want working and leading our teams and going after the goals in our life. We don't want our inner critic or our inner child leading ourselves.
Not many survivors of what you experienced would have thought to be the first step.
Yeah, I unknowingly dove into the deep end. I didn't quite know what was going on, but I said yes. So yeah, this leadership training got me on my path to being a therapist and a coach and doing everything I do today. So we have these different parts of ourselves trying to protect us for our own survival. The imposter syndrome is a combination of our inner critic and our inner child. And what happens is the inner critic part says, who do you think you are? You think that you're qualified for this job? You think you're qualified to manage these people? Really? What is this? This is ridiculous. You're just a kid, right? Or you're just a punk kid, or you're, whatever it is. So this critic part is actually trying to protect you from looking like a fool. It doesn't want you to go out and fall on your face. It doesn't want you to go out and be humiliated. And so it's trying to protect you by getting you to not put yourself out there in the first place. But that's not the only thing that's going on, because you have this critic who is saying, you aren't qualified for this. You da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. It's directly talking to your inner child. So then it sounds like in your head, I'm not qualified for this. I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Why am I even trying? So then it turns into I'm not good enough. I shouldn't be doing this. Why am I even here? Because it's a conversation between the two. The critic saying, you are not qualified for this. And the child is saying, I'm not qualified for that.
Oh.
So it's two parts happening. And what that means is the adult is nowhere to be found.
No. How interesting. I know the inner critic and those types of words very well, but I hadn't connected it to be in conversation with my inner child at the time. I hadn't seen that as being the inner child. I felt it was being the trying to be brave adult me, having that badgering by the inner critic.
Yeah, because if we kind of just listen to one of them and ignore the other one, they're going to get louder. The little kid's like, hey, mom, hey, mom, hey, mom, hey, mom, right? Like you should probably, I'm not a parent, but I've seen it. Right?
I feel it. I feel that in my bones, that one.
Yeah, right? They're gonna get louder. Instead of trying to just push this kid away, ignore it, pretend it's not there, we need this adult to come in and say, hey, I got you. It's not your job to go to work. It's not your job to manage these people. It's my job. I am fully qualified because I got this position in the first place. Thank you, critic. I'm good. I have experience with this. And if I'm new at this, I get to learn and I get to ask people for help. And that is what's going to make me a good leader. Because if I am leading only from my critic doesn't want me to ask for help. My critic wants me to do it all on my own and not delegate to anybody else because we can't trust anyone else to do the work. And the critic is going to have you isolated and alone, working overtime by yourself on holidays, right? But your adult is the one that can see, hey, I need to ask so-and-so for some advice on this. Or, hey, let's do a group call where we can get everybody's input on this because I want to collaborate. Or, hey, you know what? This is the second night in a row that I've worked overtime. Tomorrow, I'm making sure to leave at the appropriate time because of my mental health and because my family is important to me too. It's important to be able to get curious about yourself, to want to know about yourself. And if you want to lead people, you have to know them. And if you want to know them, you got to know you. And there's no better way of getting to know you than having somebody reflect back what you're saying, what you're doing, what your actions are. The best leaders out there right now have coaches. Talk to anybody. They will have a mentor, they will have a coach, they will have a therapist, they will have somebody that they talk to that is in a different perspective than they are. And that's the important part.